All right, so let us get our strap ready so that we have a loop that's fixed that we can press out against. So if you need to tie it in a knot, if you don't have a buckle, that's fine. Just try to make it so that once you get a lasso, that it's not going to slip or slide. Now this is different than the resistance band. So we need a fixed loop in a strap, and then if you're going to use resistance, that's going to come later. I guess you could use the resistance if you wanted to, but we're going to try to get the band to be fixed so that we can put it around our legs. And then tighten it up. You're going to put it on your upper leg bones. Tighten it up so that when you press out into that strap, your legs don't go any wider than your hips. So it's not like a butterfly motion. It's just about hips width. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then you're going to come down onto your back and just find some nice easy breaths. And in this first little bit, you're not going to try to create any resistance around that band, around your hips. You're just settling. Create a few pelvic rocks, just like we've been doing, rolling from that 12 o'clock position to the 6 o'clock position along the whole length of your sacrum, allowing for the rest of your spine to kind of follow along. So you could sense slightly tucking the chin without overdoing it, and then letting the chin lift as much as it wants to. And then if you have your block nearby, all you're going to do with that is hold it and kind of press inward. So you're feeling just a little bit of a sense of shoulder stability here. And we'll just take it straight up over the chest. If you don't like pressing into the palms, you could also hold that block in between your elbows and squeeze in on the elbows. Sometimes that feels a little better. Create that pelvic tuck so your tailbone starts to curl up, and then we're going to peel the spine off the ground nice and slow to our modest bridge pose. Now you're going to try to keep the left leg pressing just straight down, like you're pushing on a gas pedal, but then work against the strap a little bit with the right leg as if you were trying to move the right leg out away from your body. And then relax off of that effort and just push both feet equally into the floor. So it's just a subtle difference. Legs pressing straight down, hips pressing up, squeezing in on the block. Now the right leg is going to continue just to press downward, but we'll think of kicking out with that left leg or pressing your left leg into the strap. Right leg's pushing down, left leg's trying to pull outward. And then just press down with both feet really firmly and find a sense of your heels trying to pull backwards towards your tush. And then slowly lower down. Slide the block between your legs. It will probably be a pretty tight fit, but if you need to take your strap and give it a little more slack, do that now. Now you're going to squeeze in on that block. This could also be a squishy ball. If you don't have a block, that could work too, but I'm sure most of you have that now. Find those inner thigh muscles. Keep holding your block. And once again, find your bridge. As you hold the block with your inner thigh muscles for just a moment, see if you can back off of the glutes squeezing. And now can you keep squeezing the block and squeeze only the right bum? Try to really relax the left bum if possible. Keep squeezing on the block, relax the right bum, and squeeze the left. Both hips squeeze, and we squeeze in on the block. Let's do that again. Just the right bum, and the inner thighs hugging. Now just the left bum, and you're trying to crush the block. Both legs squeezing in on the block and both bums squeezing. One more set. Right glutes, left glutes, and the block is being hugged. Both glutes. Nice tight squeeze all the way around. And then lower down. As your feet stay on the mat, we're going to let the legs rock just a little bit side to side. This isn't a big twist. This is just a simple rock. Simple rock. And then you're going to take the block away for a moment. Create just a little more slack in your loop. So now your knees are a little bit further apart, but not a whole lot wider than the hips. Knees above the hips, thigh bones vertical. Just rest your head back down. We're going to create a little leg scissors here. So if you try to think of pulling your right leg inward and kicking your left leg away from you, you're going to find just a small split stance with your legs. And then once you feel the edge of the resistance into that strap, just hold. Hip flexion on the right, and then the effort of hip extension on that left leg. What's your back doing here? Can we find a little bit of ease in the neck and the shoulders? Neutralize the back curves. And that doesn't necessarily mean to flatten it all the way out. Now switch. You're going to think of kicking away with the right, pulling in with the left, press against your band. And pause. Stationary splits. Notice that natural core response too. You might be feeling your abs awaken or your spinal muscles firing up. Back to a neutral position, and then we'll just set the feet. Knees no wider than the hips. Still, we're just going to find those little side-to-side rocks on the back. Kind of a really gentle twist. Slight tipping of the pelvis. And we're going to do one more set of the split isometrics. Knees over the hips. Pull the right leg in. Kick the left leg away. It's just a few degrees of motion in each hip joint. And then a really low level effort, holding this position, you're going to press both legs outward against the strap. So it's not really rotation, it's just a simple abduction. Switch the position of the legs. First, just start with the front to back kicking motion, pulling and pushing. And then we're going to add in just a slight awareness of pulling our legs apart into the strap for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Set your feet back down. Create those little rocking motions. You can allow for a little more rotation if you want, if it feels good. And then you can get rid of this fixed strap. And we'll roll on to, let's go right side. Your block, you could put that underneath your head if you wanted that little support. Otherwise, a blanket or a towel or something's fine. Traditional hip carve, but we're only going to do 2 of the movements instead of the whole rotation. We're going to start with that left leg just hovering above hip height. And then all you're going to do here is internally rotate your hip, bring it back to neutral, and abduct the hip, which is just kind of opening it like a gate. Come back to hip height or so, internal rotation only, that heel pivots up. And then neutralize the rotation and open it like a gate. Now through both of these 2 movements, you are pressing down really firmly with the bottom leg. And I like to keep my left hand on my pelvis area to ensure that I'm not twisting that part open and closed. I'm simply rotating the thigh bone. Let's keep moving through internal rotation and abduction. keeping the pelvis vertically stacked on itself. 2 more times. Okay, now we're going to change the lever a little bit. Instead of a bent knee, we're going to take it into a straight leg kick. And you're going to try to think heel and hip in the same line. Your natural tendency will be for that leg to drift out in front of you because that's going to make it a little easier. So you're going to try to think of kicking back, a little bit of a glute squeeze, and then turn your toes towards the floor. We're going to hold internal rotation with this left leg and then lift it and lower it. Just a simple abduction. It doesn't have to be a long ways. Notice if your waistline is trying to help with this. So I can feel on my right side my waistline dipping into the floor and then pulling away from the floor. So I'm going to reduce my motion until I can keep that part really still and just work my hip. Let's do 5 more little lifts like this. And when you complete your 5, just move your left hip in any way that it feels good. And don't be strict about what else is going on in your body. So you can kind of get rid of that really strict stabilizing form and just be free to move your hip. Can we switch sides now? Roll on to the left. Bent knee position to start off. 2 components of the hip car. We'll float it into a little bit of abduction and then internally rotate, neutralize, and then pure abduction opening. Bottom leg, nice and stable, pressing into the floor. And now the right hip is moving all on its own. Check in with your pelvis and your waistline and try to keep all that nice and stable and still. Rotate inward, heel pivots up. Neutral rotation. I'm going to open it like a little clamshell. Let's do 2 more. Now kick your right leg straight. Try to send your heels straight down from your hip bone. And then turn your toes towards the floor. That is your internal hip rotation. And now we're lifting and lowering. The range of motion is big enough that you can feel it, but not so big that your whole body is participating. Trying to keep some stillness in the ribs and the side body. Let's try for 5 more. Okay, press up to seated. I'm just going to let your legs move. So that might be kind of wiper motions. You could do a little on your side too first if you want. I like to use this position to kind of scrub my bum muscles. So just kind of a front to back rubbing motion with my legs pivoting to one side. Okay, so for the next layer, we are going to come back to our right side. And this is where you could use resistance band. I'm going to go with the light one. If you're using your mini band, you're going to put it just above the knee or so. Block maybe under your head again. And we're going to start with a straight leg on top. Okay, straight leg on top. We are going to use that internal hip rotation. And we're going to pull forward to tap the toes and then kick back behind us to tap the toes. Now the whole time you're working on internal hip rotation. You don't need to use a resistance band, but you can if you want to. I'm thinking mine is almost so light I can't even feel it, but I'm going to be satisfied with that today. Now, what can you do with your arms to help create more stability? And maybe even coming back to this idea of a downward pressure with your right leg, tapping in front, tapping behind. Noticing if your lumbar spine is trying to help with this by tucking under or creating extension. And instead, try to keep it in your hip joint. Let's do 3 more taps and front to back. Even more pressure downward with the bottom leg. More stability in the ribs, the shoulders, and that side body. Last 2. Last 1. And then roll over onto your left side. We'll do the same thing, front to back tapping. As far as the range of motion goes, you know, that's kind of your build your own experience. If you're trying to move too much and the body starts to shift, then you know that your better strategy might be to reduce your range of motion so that you're only moving that hip. Internal rotation, toes point down. Stretch forward and tap. Kick back and tap. Ooh, I'm sensing a sweet little burn here going on in some of my tush muscles. Let's try for 3, 4, 5 more. Continue to work into the mat with your left leg and stabilizing the arms however is beneficial to this movement. Oh man, I don't even think I can do that many more. I think I got 1 or 2 more is all. And then let's just keep the band if you're using one, but lay on your back and just kind of rock around, move your hips a little bit, supported by your hands. You can do some sweet little hip circles or windshield wipers. Now we're going to come back to the bridge as our vehicle. But we are going to use the resistance band if we want. So finding the hip raise, tucking and rolling, maintaining a posterior tuck under, as if you were trying to curl your tailbone up between your legs. Find your bridge, maximize that hip extension, and then press outward into the strap and then slowly pull your legs back together. Now they don't have to touch, but they can if you want them to. Now you might be tempted to roll onto the outside edges of your feet as you do this, but we're going to try to keep intact with the foot tripod. Pull your knees apart, any amount, and then control that reversal so that the band doesn't just snap you back together. Out and in, keep going. Maybe 2 to 3 counts out, 2 to 3 counts in. Five more or so. And then let's hold the legs open. They don't have to be super wide. We're going to go back to the independent glute squeezes. So when one side's squeezing, let the other side relax. And just hold for a beat or two. This particular movement really highlights that my right glute is paying attention a lot more skillfully than my left glute is. Now, as you squeeze and relax back and forth, you're going to sense that your pelvis is tipping slightly. One hip is extending, and then the other hip is just kind of relaxing. Let's do a few more of these. Try to keep ease through the neck, jaw, shoulders, breath. And then travel back down to your mat. Give your legs a squeeze into your body. If you'd like to go back to wipers or a little rocking, that could feel pretty good. And then we're going to use our dowel or our broomstick. And we kind of did this motion earlier. This is just going to change things a little bit. If you don't have this object, you can put the fixed loop back around your legs. Tuck that dowel behind your right knee. Okay, and then you're going to place it in front of your left knee. And you'll use this left hand to just help control and keep this stick horizontal. Left leg's pressing into the pole and the right leg is kicking away from you, and you're just holding and breathing isometrically. Try to keep your pelvis pretty balanced on your mat. Tailbone reaching towards the floor, lower back curves normal. A little more effort now, trying to produce more force into the stick in both directions. And then we'll switch sides. Tuck it behind your left knee. And you'll put it in front of your right leg. Try to pull your right leg towards the stick and kick your left leg into the stick outward. Breathing. All right, my friends, we're still going to be using this long stick. We're going to use it to create leveraged internal rotation. And you won't need your resistance for this. You can get rid of that. Okay, this one's a little funky to get into, so I'll try my best to guide you. Let's start with the right foot on the ground, and then your left leg is going to be in that reverse tabletop position, okay? Bring your dowel to the outside of your leg. So it's on the outside edge of your left knee, but you're going to take it behind your knee and try to get it to the inside of your left heel. From the outside to the inside. And then you're going to use the stick to rotate your hip into internal rotation. So the stick that's in your right hand, you're going to pull it across your body towards your right, and your heel is going to pivot outward to the left. Knee stays over the hip. Your thigh is going to stay vertical. And you're just testing the edge here. You don't have to crank too far with this. Just find where that stopping point is. And we're just breathing. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, you're going to create about a 2 to 3, trying to press out of this rotation. So you're going to press your left heel, the inside edge of your heel, back into the stick, but your right arm is going to resist it. So the position of your body is not moving at all. You're just creating the opposite effort, and you're breathing for 3. 2. Relax off of that resistance and see if you have any more degrees of inward rotation. And then you're going to press again back into the stick with the inside edge of your left heel, just really low level. And now relax off of that, move into the passive stretch, and let's see where we're at. Just take the dowel out from your leg, right over your head, and you're going to bridge up here. Power up the seat. Find your feet. Imagine that block in between your inner thighs like you're trying to squeeze in on it. And we'll do one more set of the alternating glute squeezes, right and left. And then reset for hip rotation on the right side. Left foot's just going to stay put. Try to get your right leg to be straight up and down vertical. Start with the dowel on the outer edge and then pull it to the inside of your right heel. And then you're going to find that rotation inward. Heel pivots out. I've got the stick part that's closest to me. I'm holding that in my left hand, and my right hand is just making sure that the dowel stays against my leg and foot so it doesn't slip away and bonk me in the head. Make sure that that knee doesn't drift too far away from you or cross over your body. You're trying to keep that vertical stack, knee over hip. Use the stick to find your end range of internal hip rotation and pause. And then just a little bit of a press. Right heel pressing into the stick. You're trying to push out of the rotation. Relax into the passive stretch. Do you have any more rotation? I usually earn just a few more degrees. Last resistance stretch. Press inward. Trying to rotate your thigh the other direction without moving anything. Relax one more time, internally rotating, passively leveraging yourself just to your degree of comfort. And then just hold your stick right over the chest, plant your feet, last bridge, tuck and roll your way up. Maybe this one we come a little higher, and you can reach the dowel overhead to stretch through your arms, your shoulders, your lats, thinking of your knees driving over your toes and your shoulders being allowed to shrug as much as they want to. Lower down nice and slow. You can set all of your props off to the side. Rock and roll your way up to your seat. And let's just have a quick sit in a cross-leg seat. Drop your eyes closed if you want to, and you could even sit on that yoga block if that gives you a little bit of support. Let's see how our pelvis, spine, and hips feel in this seat. Now keep in mind, everything that we did today was either internal hip rotation or abduction and adduction. We really didn't do anything with hip external rotation. Yet some of you might be sitting with your legs externally rotated if you're sitting cross-legged. So notice how it feels, even though we didn't stretch, quote unquote, those muscles that rotate the hip outward. I'm curious to know if you feel a little space here and able to sit comfortably. Monitor your breathing. 4 counts in, 4 counts out, more or less. Your best rhythm. I invite you to take some pauses after your exhales. When you're completely empty, pause for a count of 2 to 4. And then take a new breath. Exhale it all the way out. Pause. Another couple rounds like that. Comfortable but conscious breathing. Watching and listening to your thoughts without getting too invested in them, without claiming ownership of them. Thank you for moving with me today. Stick around if you would like to chat about this class. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow night. Thanks, everybody. Namaste.